Did you kill Meredith Kircher?
No.
Were you there that night?
No.
Do you know anything you have not told police that you have not said in this book? Do you know anything?
No.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear the thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello, and a warm welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In the previous episode, we looked at 6 of the 12 insights from Knox's 4-page letter to the Italian police, basically trying to provide them with an alibi. Does she succeed? Let's review the first 6, and then we'll look at the second 6, the last 6. Number 1, Knox accepts that she must provide an alibi after all. Number 2, Knox places herself at the scene. 3, Knox implicates someone specific in Meredith's murder. 4, Knox returns the favor by implicating Raffaele. Number 5, Knox describes a cleanup operation. Number 6, Knox anchors her story in the reality of a text message. Before we deal with the other 6 startling, if not shocking, insights from this letter, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do. Again, just a reminder that I've written a number of books on this case, including the trials of Amanda Knox. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So the next 6 insights from that really interesting, some might say dodgy, confession in inverted commas. Number 7, Knox describes returning to the crime scene alone, but not cleaning up. Knox doesn't admit to stepping over a bloody footprint in her bathroom and taking a shower, in this note. She also doesn't admit to doing a load of washing, something her roommates often complained about. What she does mention is why the mop in the villa was needed at Raffaele's house. She mentions that detail, but another reason could be that the mop was full of blood, and so they needed to remove it from the crime scene to wash it and perhaps disinfect it with bleach and other things. It appears a blood trail from Meredith's front door to the front door was wiped clean, likely with a mop. The house was also so clean, none of Knox's fingerprints or DNA was found. She lived there, so why were there so little traces of her? Number 8, Knox admits to seeing blood in the house. Blood is mentioned 3 times and a door is mentioned 3 times. Remember, this crime is unusual in that Meredith was found behind a closed and locked door, a door that was not closed or locked by Meredith herself. Amanda, in all 3 instances, refers to the front door rather than the door that matters, the door to Meredith's room. She slyly suggests that the front door is where foul play occurred, rather than the obvious fact that it occurred behind Meredith's door, the door opposite her own bedroom door, and thus it would have been impossible not to notice. And yet in her own version of events, where she is free to say anything, Knox doesn't mention Meredith's closed and locked door. Number 9, Knox acknowledges doing nothing to find out how or where Meredith was. She talks about seeing herself cowering with her hands over her ears and hearing Meredith screaming. Does she talk about trying to find out how Meredith is or asking Meredith how she is? Does she ever think about Meredith in her own narrative? In the 4-page note, Knox never once communicates with Meredith or expresses any concern about Meredith or mentions anything about what Meredith said or did. Remember, she goes back to her home, finds Meredith's door closed, and yet makes no effort to find out how Meredith is or how she is. Meredith's name is mentioned 11 times in the note, Raffaele's 16 times. The most we hear about Meredith when she was alive is the tepid, quote, "I saw Meredith the last time at my house when she left around 3 or 4 in the afternoon." Knox writes on at least 2 occasions, I know I didn't kill Meredith. But if she can't remember where she was, think about it. You can't even remember where you were. How can she really be sure of anything? Number 10, Knox never calls the police. Even though Knox lived in the villa and was actually the only one home besides Meredith, somebody else realized what was happening and called the police. Neither Knox nor Solicitor opened Meredith's door either. Someone else realized the need and did so. Number 11, Knox admits being under the influence of drugs. She says, I smoked marijuana. And while I think that is true, I think one's also got to ask what more than that. Were some other drugs involved as well? After writing about how I am thinking, Knox enumerates several points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. Here, but not elsewhere, she also makes 2 rare spelling mistakes. She writes presence spelled P-R-E-S-S-A-N-C-E for presence, and testimony she spells T-E-S-T-I-M-O-N-E for testimony. She seems to do this deliberately in order to demonstrate how she is really thinking. In other words, that she is enumerating things in a way that's not correct. She can't spell, and that this is due to some kind of strain that she's suffering mentally. She claims her mind is clearer now than it was, but it still reminds one of Jodi Arias's convenient fog.
Let's take a look at Jodi's story versus Jodi's actions. Her story versus what she actually did. Her story includes a lot of what I call selective amnesia. She forgets everything, like Jane said, that's bad for her, but remembers what's good for her. But she did forget that she has amnesia.
So she was in a fog all that time for 5 hours, Vinny? I'm not buying the story. It's BS.
There's a lot of that day that I don't remember. There are a lot of gaps. I don't remember the poses of the pictures. I have no memory of stabbing him.
Overall, if you read the note on its own merits, if you divorce it from everything you know about this case and you look at it as its own thing, it's a well-constructed note. It's clear and eloquent even in its deception. The deeper, more pertinent question is, does it succeed in convincing the reader? And then point number 12, Knox admits that the truthfulness of her story is doubtful. Knox admits that she's having flashbacks and that she seems to be remembering what happened in flashes and through a blur. Where have we heard that before? She refers repeatedly to her head, dreams in her head, ideas in her head, questions in her head, and her head being full of contrasting ideas. The word lie appears an astonishing 12 times. Truth comes up 9 times in her confession, evidence 6 times, and the word believe 3 times. Knox ends her letter with the words, I have nothing but lies to be afraid of, and starts it off talking about what really happened, only to not do so once again. Her 4-page letter, let's be clear, doesn't tell us what really happened. Instead, it twists its own meaning. Think about those words, I have nothing but lies. That's how she concludes the letter. That's how she ends the letter. And, that's where you are really emphasizing what you are trying to get at. And she says, I have nothing but lies. I have nothing but lies. After that, to be afraid of. Curiously, in Knox's own commentary today, or recently, her own words to describe the trial and examining this letter, she says the following, I'm sure people will still hold it against me because they don't want to understand what happened and they don't want to accept that an innocent person, and this is the pertinent part, an innocent person can be gaslit and coerced into what I went through. Well, the irony is that is exactly what happened to poor Patrick Lumumba. He was an innocent person who was gaslit and coerced. He was actually imprisoned as a result of her words. He was gaslit and coerced into what he went through, and what he went through was pretty horrific. He lost his business. He lost his home in Perugia. He ended up moving to another country. But one wonders why the Amanda Knox of today can't explain either what she was saying then or what she meant, or what her alibi actually is today. And you would imagine, I don't know whether Amanda is in Italy right now, but you would imagine the perfect person to deal with this note, to explain what she was saying, to explain what she meant, is Amanda. But what's she doing in America? Also, when did Knox realize that Patrick Lumumba wasn't the killer? And did she ever apologize for implicating him? Or, while he was in prison based on her accusation, why didn't she express a change of heart so that he could get out of jail? The fact is, if Patrick was the killer, then Amanda wasn't. And so by his being implicated, it would seem Amanda wasn't. Does that make sense? I'm not going to take it further than that. In the next analysis, we'll examine this confession through the intertextuality of Amanda Knox's book and Raffaele Solicito's book, respectively. On Saturday, I'll be dealing with Doomsday Dad Chad Daybell's timeline from September 2019 until the bodies were discovered. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.